For over 2 millennia, the Terracotta Army lay in silence, frozen sentinels guarding the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. Thousands of life-sized clay warriors stood waiting for instructions that would never be given, their faces inscribed with lifelike detail, their armor and arms looking as if ready to fight. For centuries they just stood there in eerie quiet, protecting a brutal leader even after death. But now, after all these centuries, that quiet has at last been broken. Contemporary specialists, after decades of patient research and sophisticated equipment, have deciphered cryptic, ancient writing inscribed upon the armor, weapons, and even secret portions of the statues themselves. What they uncovered was not a glorious tribute to the emperor, nor a detailed battle record as some had believed, it was something far darker. It was a warning. A chilling and cryptic message that has completely altered what we thought we knew about the reign of China's first emperor. What, then, was actually discovered? Join us in this exploration as we uncover the truth behind the decoded inscriptions. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. For most of history, most archaeologists and historians working on the Terracotta Army were drawn to the glaringly apparent, the sheer size of the army itself. They gazed at the rows of thousands of statues arranged in neat ranks, the fine details of the soldiers, horses, chariots, and arms. They studied the surrounding tomb of the emperor, viewing the location as one of the greatest ancient engineering wonders. But as attention was riveted on these resplendent details, something infinitely smaller and much less conspicuous started to gain attention over time. Embedded in the sheer ocean of clay soldiers were inscriptions, minute, easily missed marks. These minute markings, scratches, and inscriptions were not positioned in locations where individuals would quickly notice them. They were concealed under the statue's feet, behind armor plates, within empty torsos, or along limb inner sides. Initially, when scientists saw these marks, they downplayed them as insignificant. Most believed they were mere workshop stamps, likely just labels for various craftsmen or groups of laborers. Others thought that maybe they were inventory numbers applied to monitor production. For decades, that was the general assumption. However, the deeper these symbols were examined, the more strange they seemed to get. Some symbols looked nothing like any form of Qin dynasty writing. Some only appeared once, etched onto one statue and never reappearing on any other. Some symbols were strangely irregular, cut out in locations so obscure that no one could have ever discovered them without disassembling the statue. That alone made them hard to analyze. For decades, due to the fragility of the statues, scientists could not examine them extensively. They could not just smash the warriors to bits to look inside. And so, these enigmatic marks lay undisturbed, unstudied, and mostly forgotten. No credible theories about these enigmatic marks existed for decades. Scholars swept the topic under the rug, not wishing to indulge in outlandish theories. But technology did come to revolutionize everything. With the advent of multispectral imaging, scientists could subject the statues to various forms of illumination. Symbols undetectable by the human eye then materialized, some washed out, others buried beneath the clay. The miracle, though, arrived when artificial intelligence entered the scene. Through machine learning, computers were taught to scan, classify, and compare the symbols against recognized writing systems. The AI uncovered patterns that were not visible to human scholars. It identified connections to Qin dynasty seal script and even older Chinese writing. It categorized symbols by where they appeared, by statue type, pit number, and orientation. Gradually, a bigger pattern became clear. The focus changed from simply cataloging the inscriptions to trying to figure out what they actually meant. And when the first translations arrived, they stunned everyone. These were not ordinary names or sign-offs for a workshop. Some of the inscriptions were intensely personal. Some had emotion. And some were painful. The tone of most was one of fear, even desperation. One of the inscriptions that was repeated and carved in several secret spots read, "Constructed by suffering." It was never inscribed in areas that could be seen but always within the statue, concealed beneath armor plates or inside torsos. Yet another ominous inscription, found within the statue of an officer, stated, "He took my name and burned it in stone." Nobody knew whether this was a figure of speech or the actual scream of a worker who had been erased and enslaved in the service of the emperor. Either, it was not anything like the messages in regular Qin documents. What if these symbols were never intended to be simple workshop notes to begin with? What if they were an integral part of something big, something concealed right under our noses? Whispers among researchers in the 1990s started going around, but nothing official was published. A few linguists and archaeologists exchanged ideas in hushed tones. One of them had the idea that certain symbols had rhythmic repetitions, like chants or ritual words. He theorized that the inscriptions may not have been meant to be read quietly, but actually spoken out loud, as part of rituals. If so, the implication would be that the symbols were intended to trap spirits into the statues, guaranteeing that these terracotta soldiers stood immortal watch over the emperor, even after death. Another theorist, a historian of ancient Taoist manuscripts, posited that the symbols were similar to shreds of spiritual incantations. Such incantations were traditionally employed to capture roving spirits and keep them from bringing harm. He even advanced a dark hypothesis, that part of the trapped souls were actually the very people who died building the Terracotta Army. Others went even further, theorizing that the marks were part of a much greater ritual pattern. This theory has it that the inscriptions weren't intended to be read as individual things at all. Instead, they created a single vast map of symbols that spanned the entire army, a gigantic ritual spell encasing something more profound, maybe even in the emperor's still-sealed tomb. These concepts, however, never saw print. The scholars who wrote them either dropped their studies, kept quiet, or vanished from the topic in general. Whispers of previous clandestine undertakings circulated. In the 1980s, whispers told of a Xi'an-based team that secretly cracked open damaged statues in search of hidden inscriptions. But their work ended abruptly. Some researchers fell ill, others resigned, and no official reports were ever released. It was as though the project had been deliberately erased. In the 1990s, a different university attempted sound scanning methods. They reported unusual echo patterns, suggesting hollow spaces inside the clay. One of the researchers even asserted marks had been left in inaccessible locations. But shortly after publishing his work on the internet, the record was removed and the project dropped. By the early 2000s, a foreign group tried to subject the inscriptions to cryptographic analysis. They assumed that one repeating sequence read, "Buried alive for eternity." They were shortly thereafter deported from China, ostensibly for visa problems. But most thought otherwise. Were these findings being concealed? As more statues were examined, there were no patterns. Troops standing shoulder to shoulder often carried entirely different symbols. Some were covered with intense inscriptions, while others had none. The inconsistency confused scholars. Although some of the markings definitely were part of the Qin seal script and designated workshops or overseers, many others were distorted, wrecked, or unintelligible. They obeyed no rules. With 3D laser mapping, specialists scanned statues in incredible detail. Small carvings tucked away in impossible locations were exposed for the first time. Thousands of inscriptions were now able to be collected without harming the delicate warriors. One of the most eerie finds was a sentence etched below the arm of a broken soldier along the rim of a pit, "Here lies death and those who served it." The message was succeeded by shattered, illegible symbols. Even more unforgiving was an inscription etched at the foot of a knelt-up archer, "I worked until my hands broke. Let him tread upon me forever." Whether this was a despairing cry of a suffering workman, or an oath of everlasting fidelity, its note was somber and funereal. These discoveries led specialists to reconsider everything. The Terracotta Army was no longer merely a representation of imperial dominance and eternal glory. It now seemed like a monument erected on the basis of human suffering, in which slaves left their agony inscribed on clay. Their silent voices, long denied, had now been heard. Maybe the army wasn't simply designed to protect an emperor. Maybe it was constructed to protect secrets, dark secrets buried for 3 millennia. And perhaps, just perhaps, the unearthing of a single soldier's secret inscription is the beginning of finding the deeper secrets entombed with the first emperor himself.